What's good, everybody? My name is Hameen Phillips. You're watching the Sticky Web Domains channel. So today I want to kind of continue on with another video to my Storytime series. And if you're not familiar with that, I can add that in a card up here. And you can check out my Storytime playlist if you're not familiar with that series. Unlike my other video, though, this is not from my own personal experience. I actually found this story on Reddit, and I like it, so I thought you guys will like it too. So I want to share this with you guys. So this is going to be a read. So if I'm not looking directly into the camera, it's because I'm reading from my computer here, and I'll try to glance up as much as I can, but this is kind of a long story, so the most important part for me is just to get this story told and get it across to you guys. So just know if I'm not giving you a lot of eye contact, it's because I'm reading the story. So grab some popcorn or whatever you're going to need, because this is going to be very interesting. I also want to point out that this story was told from a female's point of view. So that's going to be important for you guys to know that this was a female actually originally that told the story, so you guys should know that. All right, let's let the games begin. This is without a doubt the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. I have only told a few people, but feel like I need to share it here in case it happens to any students traveling abroad to be cautious. So a little background first. This thing happened to me about 5 years ago when I was 19 and studying abroad in Italy. Our school had its own campus about an hour outside of Rome in a quiet town where the Pope had a summer place. Part of our school's program in Italy was that we had to leave the campus for 10 days to vacation and explore Europe in October. Everyone was split off into their friend groups and travel. I didn't really have a group I was attached to, but wanting to go by myself. I asked these two girls I was friendly with if I could just travel with them. They were best friends and roommates and were nice enough. We decided to travel from Rome to Australia, Prague, and Germany via Eurail. That's a train, by the way, you guys. We went the entire trip having fun and without incident until the last day, which is where my awful experience begins. On our last day, we were in Munich, meeting up with most of our class as a school tradition of sorts. The two girls I was traveling with and I had tickets to take the overnight train that night back to Rome from Munich, and we left around midnight. During the day, one of the girls tells me that she had changed her plans 10 days ago before we left and was going to stay in Munich overnight and come back the next day, which was a surprise to me. But I still wasn't that worried because she was joining up with our classmates and staying in a booked hostel with them, and I would still be traveling with this other girl. Then, to my dismay, the other girl says she is changing her mind and staying at the overnight Munich too. I asked her where she planned to stay, as we hadn't booked a room in a hostel. She said she would sneak into the hostel and share a bed with the other girl. I told her that I really was uncomfortable traveling alone and that it wasn't fair for her to abandon me like that. She told me nonchalantly that I could just find a hostel and book another ticket if I cared so much. I told her I didn't have the extra money for a separate ticket back to Rome, let alone a hostel. In addition to that, I was a college student. I was very tight on money and I already spent a lot on this trip, and I just didn't have enough in my bank account to try to book another ticket. Despite my pleas, those pretty girls said essentially that it was not their problem and ditched me. Luckily, we had already met up with another group of our classmates who felt bad for me, and we spent the entire last day of our vacation running all around Munich trying to find me a hostel to stay at that night, and even offered to pull together money to help me pay for a ticket back. Unfortunately, it was Oktoberfest in Germany, and literally every hostel was completely booked up. And despite my attempts to sneak into my friends' hostels with them, I was stopped and thrown out. At this point, it's nighttime. I was defeated and worried, but my other classmates who had tried to help me were still sticking with me. I figured at this point, the only options I had were to sleep outside on a bench in Munich. Totally unsafe and ridiculous, by the way. Or I could take the overnight train back to Rome by myself, which is not super safe, but I figured I'd be around other people, so maybe not completely awful. So I decided to go ahead and take the overnight train back to Rome by myself. And my classmates walked me to the station and saw me on the train. Those guys ended up being some of my closest friends in years to come, by the way. So now I'm on this overnight train by myself, and I head to my carriage. The way it was set up was, it was a room like off a hallway with 6 seats, no beds because I'm trying to save money. I was the first one in my carriage, and so I sat next to the window on the side and put my giant backpacker's pack, which was only my luggage, on the 2 seats next to me. Eventually, 2 German guys in their 30s come in and are polite enough, and they sit opposite of me. They converse with each other, they got their suitcases, etc., and are looking at maps of Rome and, doing touristy things. I feel safe enough with these guys since they're minding their own business, but this is where it gets bad. I settle in and listen to music and try to sleep for a bit. And perhaps after an hour or so, I start to notice there's a super sketchy guy standing right outside our carriage in the middle of the hallway staring at me. I'm completely freaked out because number one, no one is supposed to just be in the hallway standing there. You're either on your way to the loo or headed back to your carriage. Why would anyone just be standing in the hallway? And 2, he didn't break eye contact with me. Once I looked at him, he just kept staring at me with a sinister look on his face, like he wanted to eat me up or something. So I kind of freaked out and tried to look away and pretend like I didn't really notice him. I waited a bit to see if he was just a normal guy going to or from the loo or something. But when I looked back, he's still there. Hasn't moved and is still leering at me from behind the window door of my carriage. I want to go shut the curtains to the carriage so he doesn't look in, but I don't want to get close to him or piss him off or anything. So I turn to the 2 German guys and quietly tell them that the guy there is creeping me out and staring at me and making me uncomfortable. And I asked them if one of them could casually, in a minute or so, just close the curtains. I hope there'd be men and kind of protect me and tell the guy to bugger off or whatever. But instead they seemed annoyed at me and mumbled that they would, but they never did. When I brought it up again, they kind of acted annoyed, but eventually shut the curtain. I thought that surely would have deterred the guy from lurking in, and I eventually just fell asleep. A few hours later, I woke up to 3 young Germans in their mid-late 20s who also joined the carriage in the remaining 3 seats. As they come in, I notice that the creepy guy from before is still there, standing outside my door. I kind of freak out inside, and I really don't feel comfortable at all. And I'm a bit panicky at this point. I try to talk to the younger Germans, but they weren't very friendly and perhaps didn't speak English well either. It's been hours at this point, and I notice that I really have to pee. But the only way for me to get to the loo is to go outside of the carriage and down the hallway to the loo at the very end of the train, a bit away from the other carriages with people. I noticed that when the younger Germans came in, they moved the curtain a bit, so I can see the creepy dude still standing out there, leering at me still. He refuses to go away. I noticed that when people walk by to use the loo or whatever, he kind of acts casual, like he's waiting for someone or something, and looks away from my carriage. But once they're gone, he's back at it again. I try to hold it as long as I can, but this is like a 12-hour train ride, and it would be another 4 hours or more before we made it to Rome. And there was no way I was gonna make it. At this point, everyone in my carriage has been asleep for a long time, and I don't want to wake anyone. I have to nudge the young Germans on my way out of the carriage to go to the loo, and try to tell them I'm going to the loo, and could they just keep an eye on me and the creepy lurker. And they brushed me off like I'm a jerk for waking them up, and they just went back to sleep. I exit the carriage, freaked out of my mind, and I'm also about to pee my pants. And of course, I basically run right into the creepy dude standing outside of my carriage. There's hardly any room in the hallway, and he's not giving me any space and is staring me down. Mind you, I am 5'4", and he was towering over me like at 6'2" or something. So I do my best to book it to the loo as fast as I can and lock the door behind me. My heart is racing, and I'm going as fast as I can so that hopefully he hasn't followed me in here. But I get out of the loo, and he's right there with this disgusting smile on his face. I mean, I don't like to exaggerate, but there was an evil in his eyes, and it chilled me. I was sick to my stomach. I tried to squeeze by him quickly, but then he started to press himself against me. I gave him my nastiest face and yelled at him, "Let me go!" And then, sweet Christmas, there was a man headed to the loo my way just then. So the creepy dude moved off me, and I booked it back to the carriage, where I proceeded to stay for the remainder of the ride. I had thought that my outbursts and little scene I caused would have deterred that sketchy guy from creeping on me anymore. But when I looked up at some point, I noticed he was right back where he was in the hallway, staring at me. At this point, I was kinda in disbelief that someone could be this blatantly creepy. So I started to wonder if there was actually a seat out in the hallway that was cheaper than the shared carriage. But then I realized that when I had left to go to the bathroom earlier, I had seen that there was no seats. And I also remember one unsettling detail too. This guy had no luggage, not even a briefcase. This was a 12+ hour trip from Germany to Rome. So anyone on this train was either coming or going, from work or a pleasure trip, but all of them had at least a small bag or travel suitcase of sorts. So the fact that this guy had no luggage or briefcase or anything on him, was just standing in the hallway staring at me, made my stomach drop. This man did not have good intentions, and I couldn't rationalize it any other way. I spent the last hour or so of the trip devising my plan for once the train arrived at Rome. I knew the train station there very well and knew that the metro train I needed to transfer to get back to my campus was down several flights of stairs and around more than a few twists and turns. I felt pretty confident, so when the train stopped, I had my backpack on and I was ready to go. The other Germans got out of the train ahead of me, and the creepy guy had to move for them to pass, and I quickly followed in between them, jumped off the train, and booked it through the station without looking back or looking behind me. Thank God it was a crowded station with people headed to work, etc. And so I felt safe that I was disguised in the crowd. I flew down the flights of stairs and around the turns without stopping. When I finally got down to the platform for the local metro train I needed, I felt safe. I was just catching my breath when I saw no other than that creepy guy come down the stairs and look around for me. When he saw me, he had that evil, lecherous look in his eye, and I wanted to cry. I grabbed tightly onto my pocket knife in my coat pocket and made my way to a group of harmless-looking Italians and tried to stand in their crowd. They seemed annoyed that I was standing so close to them. I don't know, maybe it was my giant backpack or something. I was standing still, about several car lengths away from him at this point. But he was starting to make his way over to me, just as the train pulled up. I hopped on my train immediately and tried to position myself near some folks who rudely kept scooting away from me. I noticed he got on a few cars away. As the car was moving, he made his way down his car into the next, and with each stop the train made, he got a little closer to me. I myself moved the cars down away from him, but I grew increasingly worried that the further outside of the Metro Rome area, the fewer people were on the train, and the closer he was getting to me. When I had made it to the first car and realized I had nowhere else to go, I looked and noticed he was only one car away from me and headed my way. As we pulled to the next stop, I grasped my pocket knife tightly and made a last-ditch effort to evade him and got off the train. I looked to my right and to my horror saw that he had gotten off as well and was briskly running toward me. As the last few people shoved past me to get on the train, I realized I had no options left, so I just threw myself back and dove into the train without breaking eye contact with this sicko as the doors to the train closed in front of him. And I realized I had made it safely onto the train, leaving him on the platform, cussing and yelling as the train sped off. Not really believing I had made it safely, I spent the rest of the metro ride still in fight or flight mode and dashed upstairs to my above ground bus up to my campus, making sure I was sitting next to a sweet old lady. The creepy dude never showed up on the bus, and once I made it back inside my campus walls, I immediately fell to the ground and sobbed. I realized I was so incredibly lucky that I had evaded that what was probably a certain kidnapping, rape, murder, who knows? But I have never forgotten this man's face and the look in his eyes and how it made me feel like I wanted to peel my skin off and crawl under a rock and just die. I ended up telling my ordeal to the dean of campus and pleaded for him to reprimand those two girls who abandoned me and forced me into a compromising position, which was completely unsafe. I wanted the dean to tell all the students and future students that it is never okay to let somebody travel alone, especially females. And especially since most of us were young and felt invincible and were just plain naive and stupid and didn't know what was safe and what wasn't. But that weasel of a dean thought I was overreacting and that I was probably asking for it. Yeah, it was that kind of a school, the kind that victim blamed and thought leggings were impure and thought the girls who abandoned me were goody-goodies and I was some loose rebel who got herself into this position. He never addressed it, that SOB. I haven't heard of anyone else at my school get into situations like me, but I made sure to tell all the girls and the guys who were in years below me to be careful when they study abroad and to not do what those girls did to me. I hope this helps someone in some way. And if you ever see a man traveling long distance without any luggage or briefcase, wow. So that is pretty creepy situation, I'm guessing, for her. And I feel really bad for that girl who actually went through this. So, do you guys think this story is real? Let me know. If you think this story is fact or fiction, I'll let you decide. Also, share this video. Share this video with anybody you might think will find it interesting. And leave a comment below if you ever found yourself in a compromising position like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that alert bell so that you know the next time I'm online. And if you like it, hit that like button below. Well, you guys, it's been fun. Until the next time, I'll see you on the rails. Peace.